Okay. So I never like to end. I mean, we got two more stories, but I never like to end on a downer note because that's just not me. I'm not that type of person. So, but I will say this that um, speaking of box office, speaking of numbers, okay, um, the global box office is something that everybody looks at as something to say how did the movies do this year? Okay, as a whole, not just domestic but international. And so we have not hit double digits in the global box office until 2019. And of course, the pandemic set us back quite a bit. With all these films coming out that's making all this money, okay, we're still not there. We're still not in a place where you go to a film like The Flash and it's packed. I mean, that should have been packed, okay? The Batman was good, but not great. What I mean by that is the theatrical run. Yes, it did make $770 million overseas, but we're not all the way back, guys. And according to this report from the THR, okay, we're not going to get all the way back until 2027. Okay? So, as I said, this comes from the THR. How will the global box office look years from now? Accounting from PwC's annual Global Entertainment and Media Outlook contains forecasts for 2023 through 2027 across a variety of different industry sectors, including some noteworthy projections for cinema revenue, both in terms of box office and in terms of movie theater advertising. Among them, global cinema admissions will reach $7.2 billion or 7.2 billion in 2027, a lower than level a lower level than pre-pandemic in 2019. Now you have to remember 2019 was Endgame, so take that with a grain of salt, which counted for around 7.9 billion admissions. But helped by higher ticket prices, global cinema revenue will finally reach pre-COVID numbers by levels by 2025, when it's projected to hit $46.5 billion, followed by further growth to 52.1 in 2027. Plus, China will, quote, lead in global cinema for much of the forecast period, end quote. Now you have to remember, too, China is the number one box office market in the world, hitting box office revenue of $13.2 billion in 2027, compared to a forecast of 11.9 for North America. The two cinema giant markets have in recent years been jockeying for the top position. Despite the admissions prediction, the overall forecast of the global cinema revenue return to pre-pandemic levels will be likely to seen as welcome news in Hollywood, even though some will have hope for a faster pace of recovery. Also in 2025 will mark the recovery when global box office will overtake the 2019 tallies of 39.4 billion to hit nearly $43 billion after reaching 38.8 billion in 2024. The US trend line is somewhat different from the global curve. Box office revenue in the United States reached 6.9 billion in 2022. So there were a couple of billion-dollar films, okay? Uh, Multiverse of Madness made around 950, I mean, call that a billion. You had $3 billion films, okay? You had Jurassic World, Dominion, you had Top Gun Maverick, and you had something else, Avatar, The Way of Water. Even though it had started its run in 2023 or 2022. It's still so Avatar: The Way of Water. It's interesting. So Avatar: The Way of Water is and by the way, Spider-Man: No Way Home. Actually, I think it is 2021. But even though it ran into 2023, Avatar: The Way of Water is still considered a 2022 picture. So you take that full revenue. So there were three films to make over $1 billion. Um, let's see. The U.S. trend line is somewhat different. Okay. Uh, the firm also sees good news for the United States. That figure is expected to go further into 2023 and continue edging upwards for the forecast period. By 2025, box office is predicted to exceed $10 billion, regularly achieved by the pre-pandemic era. In 2026, the forecast calls for United States box office of 10.7 billion, up from 10.2 billion in 2025. Now, guys, I know there are a lot of numbers here, okay? But basically what it's saying is that, as I said, so last year there were 3 films, okay? It was Dominion, it was Top Gun Maverick, and it was Avatar: The Way of Water. So it basically goes on to talk about all of the different things and what is supposed to happen over the next couple of years. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens because, okay, I see your comments and I'll get to them in just a minute, guys. It's going to be interesting to see what happens because, okay, we have the strike. And the strike, okay, is really going to set things back. We have, there was a report done much earlier this year that said we could have legitimately before everything, $7 $1 billion movies. Obviously, that didn't happen. But that all being said, okay, we're still not there. And it's going to be fascinating to see with the pushback of all of these movies, okay? I mean, don't forget, Disney just came out last week and said we're pushing back Avatar franchise, we're pushing back the Star Wars franchise, and we're pushing back the Marvel franchise, okay? So that's why they're able to make these predictions, okay? Because previous results often dictate future outcomes, meaning if this film made $1 billion, it's likely, not definite, but likely that this film is going to make $1 billion too. When you have an Endgame and you have a Infinity War make that much money, okay, they can likely predict that a Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars could do that too. So Disney is going to be making a lot of money over the next 5 to 6 years. And that's why they can extrapolate this all the way out to 2027 because they see all the releases. Okay? I mean, yes, you have Superman Legacy supposed to be coming out in 2025. Now, that's not going to be $1 billion film. I would be shocked if it was. What I will say is that's probably going to get pushed back into 2026 because of the writer's strike, even though Gunn's got this done now. Okay, he wrote the script himself. There's a lot of different moving pieces here. China is the number one. People don't realize this. China, and obviously they have the largest population in the world. China is the number one box office market in the world. So when we see this, and when I'm always talking about numbers and spewing this stuff out, it's not just the here and now. That's what these studios depend on. They depend on, places like China, Germany, Japan, Austria, UK, because it's not just here, it's worldwide. And that's a big, big thing for them. So, yeah, but it's fascinating to hear them say, we're not going to be a full recovery until 2027. Don't forget, the reason why 2019 was so huge, we had Avatar, or not Avatar, I got Avatar in the mind. We had Avengers. We had Avengers Endgame. And we had Black Panther that made $700 million. I mean, that was a $1 billion film. So 2019 was a big, big year. Anyways, what do you guys think about these numbers, about not being fully back all the way until 2027 global box office? Does this worry you? Or do you think that this is right on par with everything? Do you think these new Disney films are going to help that get over that hump? Which films do you think are going to actually make that happen? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody.